What's happening, peeps? Welcome to a new review video. So I just got to see Spiral a couple of days ago, and to be honest, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but it wasn't that good either. The thing is, I followed all the Saw franchises from the beginning, and the first one was the best for me. And I think I would say actually the first three were the best as a story on its own, but then after that it just went downhill. It just drifted so much from its source, or from how it started to be. And it started off from as a crime thriller movie or story, and after that it just deviated into coming up with the most ingenious ways to torture people. That's it. I mean, there was no story or depth into the characters. I mean, most of them obviously they were just continuing after the previous parts, but then the story was very predictable, and it just lost that sense of thriller and keeping you on edge and following up with the story and keeping you hooked basically to it. So for me, the first parts were the best. The first one would be the favorite, obviously. It was written by Lee Whannell, who played the photographer in the Saw movie, or in the first part, and directed by James Wan. And then the second and third and fourth parts, I think, were directed by Darren Lynn Bousman or Boseman. I'm not sure, I might be mispronouncing the name again. I'm terrible in pronouncing names, to be honest. But he directed the second, third, and fourth parts, and now he directed this final one, or the Spiral part. So just going again quickly from the beginning. First three were the best. After that, from the fourth to the seventh, it just went downhill. And then the eighth part came in, which wasn't very gruesome, or as gruesome as the parts before it were. And this one was good, to be honest. It brought back the element of thriller. It was the closest, I would say, to the first two movies. And obviously, what I loved about the first one was the fact that it kept you speculating, thinking about what might happen next, or who might be the perpetrator of all these crimes is. So the eighth part, Jigsaw, was almost similar to that. It wasn't very close, but it was the closest compared to the other ones before it. It brought that element of speculation of what might be going on here, or how this thing might end. But at the same time, it was a little bit, it wasn't surprising as well when it comes to the twist. And I think hugely part of that is because that's what the Saw movies were known for. But obviously that worked best in the first part, or maybe in the first and second parts. But then after that, it was just all predictable. That's why in the eighth part, we were still expecting that as well. But still, it was good. As a movie on its own, or as a follow-up, it was okay. I would say it did much better than the seventh, sixth, and fifth parts. And so for this part, Spiral, I wasn't very excited when they announced that they were going to make it. But then I was interested because it had Chris Rock. And this is, I think, the first time we see him in a serious role. Most of the movies that we see him in, being the usual comedy character, and whether he's the main character or a secondary character in, but that's how we've always known him, and also because he's one of the best stand-up comedians out there. So seeing him in this part, that was kind of interesting to see a different side of him, taking his acting career into a serious direction, and see how he would work with that. And also having Samuel L. Jackson as well, because I mean, Samuel L. Jackson is basically Samuel L. Jackson, in all of his movies, whether it's serious, whether it's action, whether it's even horror or drama or comedy. He's the same character, and he's always a joy in everything that he's brought in.
You want to play games, motherfucker?
So for Chris Rock, I would say he did brilliant in this one. I mean, the fact that it was a serious role, but he didn't take it that seriously to that extent, because he kind of blended in his comedy style with the seriousness, or the serious role that he was taking, and that obviously allowed him to come off as this raw, angry, sarcastic, doesn't give a fuck character, because he was able to blend in the serious parts of the movie and adding his comedic style to it, and it just came off perfectly. For his role, I would say that was done brilliantly. That's one of the things that I loved about the movie. The story itself was a good change, from the usual movies that we would see. If I'm going to take it as a general crime thriller movie style, just not necessarily that it's a Saw movie, but just in general a crime thriller, I would say it's a good story as well. Even though it's a little bit familiar with a policeman who's treated badly by his co-workers just because he did something that was supposed to be right, or he did something right and basically gave in one of his co-workers, and everyone else in the force sees him in a bad image and sees him as a traitor, basically. It's familiar, it's not strange or new for me, but I liked it that they added it, and the way it was also done brilliantly. So with that start, all the way up until halfway, the movie was doing great. There was one soundtrack or one song in particular in one scene. I think they were in the office while they were in the police station, and there was this one soundtrack that just made me feel like, okay, something serious is about to happen. Or at the same time, I was enjoying the vibe of the movie, and I wanted to look for that song right after I came out of the cinema. And the first thing I went when I went back home, just looking for it, and eventually I found it, and this was it. You know, good soundtracks like these always keep you hooked in the movie, and they make you feel the vibe of what's going on in that scene. And this is one of the things I loved about it. Now, for the traps, they were good. I mean, they weren't very gruesome. They were gruesome, to be honest. Like, even for them, for that movie, as on its own. But then compared to the ones before that, they were, at least watchable. I would say if you saw the first, all the way from the 4th, 5th, and 6th parts. These ones, I would say, to some extent, watchable. Now, for the Jigsaw voice, I didn't really like it. It just wasn't as intimidating as the ones before. This one, I think, damaged the thriller element of the movie so much. If I would put, let's say, a percentage of it, of how much the voice, or the new voice, brought down the element, I would say 25 to 30%. It's not because it's the voice that's been known, but also because of how strong it was. Even if they're going to change it, at least keep the fact that it was powerful, strong, very deep. To be honest, I didn't like that voice at all. Now, for the second half of the movie, that's when the story started going downhill. It was becoming more predictable. I think the part that I really did not like was, and the most predictable, was when the partner of Zeke just disappeared. From the beginning, we see like a number of policemen disappearing, and then we see them getting into some of these traps. And eventually it's revealed that whoever's doing this is doing it apparently for Zeke, to get revenge for him against those policemen. It shows that from the beginning that this perpetrator had a reason. It shows the reason for why this perpetrator chose these policemen or these people and put them in these traps. But then when it came to Zeke's new partner, who was played by Max Minghella, when he just disappeared for no reason, and then he was brought in as, okay, they found him and he was skinned alive, and they couldn't even identify him except for his tattoo on his arm. For me, that was it. That was the major giveaway. That part was very predictable, and that just brought down a lot of the entertainment of the movie for me. And also because the way he was introduced as the new police member in the force, and at the same time when he appeared, these things that are happening inside the office, it was also a major giveaway. It was like a classic crime thriller movie of, something's going on, people are dying, and the people are dying are from the police force, and at the same time that they are dying, there's this new member of the police force who's joined in, and you eventually find out that actually his time of joining in is not a coincidence regarding why these crimes are happening. And then you can kind of piece in the parts together and figuring out, or realizing eventually, okay, he might have a reason for this, and eventually I know that he's the perpetrator, or he's the one responsible for these. The only thing I need to find out is why he's doing these. So for this movie, as a continuation, it's not something new. It started off very promising. It was very good. It was a good setup, good premise. But then the execution for it, from the first half, it was great. From the second half, very predictable. And that's why I wasn't very much satisfied with that ending. And it just came off eventually as a standard story of revenge. Like, the movie could have been done in different ways, not necessarily, like, even not as a Saw movie. Is it worth watching in the cinema? Not that much. Maybe if you like the soundtracks, you would enjoy them. Other than that, the story, you can easily enjoy it at home with your family or your friends. But yeah, I mean, it's not something new, it's not something special. But so yeah, I think I would give this movie about 2.5 out of 5. Do I want to see another Saw movie? I don't think so. I've seen way too much, and there have been milking it so much. I respect the fact that Chris Rock wanted to do a Saw movie. So for this one, yes, it was a good effort. The story was good. It just wasn't executed all the way to the end, as it was intended to. And so yeah, this was my review for Spiral from the Book of Saw, starring Chris Rock, Samuel L. Jackson, and Max Minghella, and directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. Might be misspelling the name. I'm sorry if I am. But yeah, this was it, and thank you all for watching. If you agree or disagree to any of the things, or you have any more thoughts that you want to put in or to share, please drop it in the comments below. And so thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day, and peace out.